What's up, people? My last video felt a little bit too much like watching somebody take a test, so today I want to take a bit of a broader view of brand discovery. So here are 4 more branding exercises you can use to gain insight on yourself, and I'll show you a little bit of my results along the way too. So just to recap, the point of all this is to try to find an objective measure of our values and goals, and that way we can base our work on something that's meaningful to us. I really think it's going to make our work more fulfilling if we pay attention to how it aligns to our values. One day, with luck, we can even stop trying to please everyone and find a solid place in the world where we attract the right people. So the first technique I want to go over is called brand analogies. The idea is that you use analogies to force yourself into thinking from a different perspective. Like many creative tools, the idea is to disrupt our common patterns of thought so we can invite new conclusions into our brains. Here's some examples. What animal are you? What kind of car are you? What celebrity is most like you? If you were a flavor of ice cream, you see what I mean. The point here isn't just to answer the question, it's to answer it with some dimension. Don't just say I'm a cat, elaborate. Throw a few adjectives in there. Are you a sweet, innocent little kitten or a ferocious tiger ready to pounce? What kind of car are you? Are you quietly powerful but not very flashy like a Subaru? Are you hard to get but you demand attention like a Lamborghini? I'm gonna go with the car that I drove for years, my favorite car that I ever owned, the Jetta. I chose it because it suited me well. It's a stylish enough car, nothing gaudy or flashy, but I always felt like a lot of thought went into it. There was definitely some attention to detail. The controls inside were very user-friendly. It's a practical car, it gets great gas mileage, but it also can be a little sporty and get you out of a pinch if you need it to. The steering and the handling are so tight that you feel one with the road. The car felt like an extension of my body. It's kind of like a good brush does for an artist. It lets you feel connected and in control all the time. So some words I might get out of this are practical, classy, not flashy, laid back, in control, precise, pays attention to detail. You won't get a perfect answer out of just doing one exercise, so try it with anything you can think of. There's more than cars and animals and celebrities. What kind of camera are you? What kind of light bulb are you? What kind of house are you? Whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is, when you start thinking of things in this way, you start looking at yourself a little differently, and you can put together qualities you might not have thought of about yourself along the way. And really make a game out of it. It can be a lot of fun. Play is an important part of being creative, and that's another reason that analogies work. Now for the second exercise, I want to compare ourselves to archetypes. An archetype is a typical example of a certain personality or a set of traits or qualities. When we took the personality test last time, the 16 possible results were archetypes. Those and the ones that I'm going to go over here are both based on these original Jungian archetypes. Carl Jung thought the goal of life was to understand ourselves better and to even try to figure out how we tick on a subconscious level. He thought these stories and characters that we keep coming back to time and time again in our mythologies and fairy tales and in our stories were based on these unconscious driving personalities, and that we could learn from these prototypical archetypes. There's more to it than that, and he argued endlessly that every single person is an exception and nobody really falls into these buckets, and that's totally valid, but we can still put this into good use. I found a great little quiz on Psychologist World that pairs you up with a Jungian archetype. I'll put the link down in the description. It's not as in-depth as the MBTI test that we took last time, but it's in a similar vein. When I took this test, my main archetype was the innocent child, and the next strongest ones were the Joker and the Great Father archetype. After that, I can just dig in and see what traits that this archetype has that I actually identify with. I'm not going to go through all that here. It's very similar to the personality test stuff. This site doesn't really get into the results, so I found this other site that's got a pretty good little rundown of the different archetypes, and so I'll put that one down in the description as well so you can check it out. They're not nearly as defined as the Myers-Briggs ones, but they work the same way. The third discovery tool I'd like to go over today is called personification. If you're creating a brand or a product, it often helps to try to imagine that as a person. In the case of personal branding, we are people. And we've done plenty of that kind of exploration through the personality tests. What I'd like to do this time around is to try to inject a little bit of our personal style into the mix. After all, we tend to love things that we identify with, and we tend to identify with things that mean something to us. So take a look at yourself. How do you dress? Why do you dress that way? What are you hoping that people will think the first time that they meet you in person? What is your favorite color? What style of music do you like? Why? For the past few years, I've worn hats. Yeah, I'm not wearing one right now, but most days I do. It all started about 6 or 7 years ago. I found this corduroy hat that matched this corduroy coat that I loved, and I thought it was really cool. Wore it with some things. Eventually, I just kind of liked the way that I looked in hats, so I wore it more often. Added a nice little personal touch to any outfit, and I used to wear blazers pretty regularly, so it was a good little mix. But over time, it became an excuse to get out the door earlier in the morning by not worrying about my hair, or sleeping in a little bit longer. And then at work, it became kind of a personal brand thing. It was totally unintentional, but I'd wear a hat, clients would remember me by that, and quickly I was the guy that they'd remember out of 6 different people. Even though it was just for the stupidest reason, it was totally effective. It became this conversation piece. It made me the butt of lighthearted jokes. It made me memorable but approachable. I wasn't taking myself too seriously, but in hindsight, it kind of just became part of who I am. I also wear a limited color palette of clothes. Got a lot of browns, got a lot of grays, I like blues, there's a couple of other colors I throw in the mix. For the most part, I'm drawn to colors that kind of blend in. I don't really like bright, saturated, standout colors. I like to feel natural, and I don't like to compete for attention. And I find the all-black thing that creative people constantly do a little bit of groupthink sheepish. I mostly got that shit out of my system in college. But browns remind me of my youth. They remind me of places that were built in the 70s that I grew up in that had the wood paneling. I feel like I grew up around browns and muted natural colors, leather and corduroy and wood and shag carpet. I know the late 80s went in a much louder, brighter direction, but that's what was still around when I was growing up, and that's kind of why, I think anyway, why I feel comfortable. I grew up in a brown world, and you can see by the choices I've made in my studio here that I still like to surround myself in earthy tones. The fourth and final exercise I'd like to share is a value definition exercise I found on this site called Mind Tools. There's a link down there in the description for you. This will help us put together everything that we've done so far. Step 1. Identify the times when you were the happiest. This one's not too tough for me. I've always had some strong associations with the places where I was the happiest. First off, as a child, I was happiest in my room, surrounded by all the things that I love. I spent my time in my room drawing, playing games on the Amiga, practicing trumpet. That's sort of what the studio here is. It's like an extension of my childhood bedroom, really. It's a place to be alone and experiment and play and make cool stuff. Step 2. Identify the times when you were the most proud. So, when I was going through junior high, I got into art courses at the college. The deal was I could take these drawing classes for real college credit provided I was able to keep my grades up at school. And the smell of kneaded erasers and paint and clay always still brings me back to that period in my life. Back in those days, I was doing what I loved, I was growing all the time, and I was really proud of the position that I was in. My dad was taking night classes, so after my drawing class let out, he still had some classes to go, and I would spend hours in the library, poring over books on Arthurian legend, or back issues of communication arts, or books on how to airbrush, whatever caught my attention that day. I remember this was before the internet was really a big thing. Back in that day, that was pretty exciting. But what made me proud to be there was that I had to work really hard. I was held to the same standards as the other students, even though my work wasn't quite as good. I had to show improvement to get good grades. I was there because I worked hard to be there, and I continued to be there because I stuck to it. Step 3. Identify the times when you were most fulfilled and satisfied. honestly, I'm feeling really fulfilled and satisfied in life right now. I have an amazing life with an amazing wife who believes in me. I have a successful career that put me in the position to be able to pursue projects like this one. I built this studio over the past decade and a half, and it allows me to make art and music and video and take photos and whatever I feel compelled to get into. I started this channel, and I'm really excited about all the directions that it could take me. Talking to you like this is fulfilling, even though only a few people have really responded so far. I have a lot of ideas I think you're gonna love, and I'm learning a lot along the way, and I'm starting to feel as good as I felt back in those days when I was younger. And this is just the beginning. The rest of this quiz helps you refine and prioritize your values. They give you this common list of values here that you can check out. But instead of using theirs, I'd like to stop here and just make our own list. If you haven't already, take the results of the personality quiz, the brand analogies, the personification, archetypes, the value definition exercise. Take all of those and just make a big list of all of the qualities that emerged. If you said you were a dog because you're loyal and you love to play, then loyal and playful should be on your list. In part 2 of this video, we'll take that long list and I'll show you how you can refine and prioritize it a little better. That way, it'll be just your core values and we can talk about how to make it actionable. They can be both an inspiration and a metric for your continued success. The thing is that success looks different for everyone, and until you figure out what success looks like for you, you won't be able to start steering your life and your work in the right direction. So now we have a pretty good list of our traits, qualities, and values, the things we love that mean something to us, and the things that we'd like to improve, our strengths and our weaknesses. I hope this has helped you gain some insight on yourself. If you learned maybe one new thing, give me a comment, let me know. I think that would be really cool. I put a bunch of links in the description today if you want to try these out. Give it a shot. It's hardly even work. It's a lot of fun. And on top of that, it gives you a meaningful foundation. The better you know yourself, the better you're going to express yourself in the work, the better that you're going to align with the right people, the better that you're going to speak to the right audience. Things will just sync up better. If you'd like to stick around and see what this channel becomes, you can subscribe. If you're digging this personal brand stuff, I started a playlist you can check out that'll have the previous videos and anything else I do on this subject moving forward. Thank you guys so much for hanging around. I'll catch you next time. Peace.